Here we go.
G'day fans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Rip It Off the Card, the show about collectibles and collecting and a whole lot of other really groovy stuff. What do you reckon there? Joining me tonight is Mr. Aaron. How you going, son?
Well, I don't know if people realise how close this was to being called off because my internet is dead and I'm running it off the phone. So this is an ad going out to Kogan Internet tonight off the phone. Hopefully I don't end up looking like Max Headroom half the way through the show.
Very. It'd just be a normal Wednesday night for you, wouldn't it? Oh, my goodness gracious. Clearly people will be hanging out for this show to start, and all these people just jumped in straight away. All these hellos from everybody. Now, there's one particular one I'm going to highlight here, and that is from Greg King. Greg, mate, you are going to be like, your tongue will be licking the floor before you know it, son. And I don't mean about the cheaper things either. Something very exciting is coming up. But, of course, I've got to chuck in a couple of my own 2 cents first. And good to see Michael again. Oh, good old evening nerds. Yeah, mate. That's it's Nerds of the World Unite. What can I say? Now, very important, fans. This show is so big and now so fat. It's like a fanboy, effectively. We've actually decided, we said, you know, in the old days, we said, when we started this show, we think we'll go for 1 hour. 1 hour is more than enough time to get an episode in. And, of course, that just never happened from day one. Then we went to 1 hour and a half. We thought, no, that's it. We can't go any further than that. And as it turned out, we are going to go ballooning it. We're going to go the full 2 hours, which is so make sure you're sitting there ready for us. So how good is that? But I do know, and I'll get to you in a sec, Aaron, that a couple of people won't be that happy. So Carol, for example, right? She's going to be cracking the shits because, like, mate, the Master Chef is on and The Bachelor and The Voice and Block and all these other bullshit reality shows. Well, guess what, Carol? Sorry, you're just going to have to build a bridge and just get over it because we're on for the 2 hours. Oh, yeah, mate. And if that doesn't leave a hole in your pocket, good old William, who loves bailing out at 9:30 to watch War of the Worlds on SBS. William, mate, take one for the team, son. The show will always be there, but we are current. What do you reckon of that?
Well, all I can say is all those other shows, they're not live and interactive, but you can always watch us later on the Facebook page or YouTube or wherever, so you won't miss too much.
I love this. Ooh, the full 2 hours. Well, it's blame Aaron. He keeps chucking all this shit in, and you know, it's like it's unbelievable. So there you go.
Well, I would actually say Dags is the producer, and it's actually meant to be the producer that keeps a rein on these things.
Yeah, well, that's true. And I've actually got a couple of things I have to announce that Aaron doesn't even know about. So don't make me making the show longer. Glenn has joined us from YouTube of all places. So I don't even know who Glenn is, but there you go. How good is that? My favourite movie is that Us. We're a movie now. Well, we're 2 hours. I suppose we are feature length, aren't we? So,
I think it's Empire. I don't think we're anyone's favourite movie, are we?
Yeah. We were our own sequel and trilogy. What can I say? Very, very, very cool. Carol said those shows aren't running anymore. That's the reason why she's joining us. Oh, there you go. Lucky the Masked Singer isn't on, because I'll surely be like hanging over to the TV to watch that. But anyway, the reason why we're going for 2 hours is because I'm rambling on too much. So I suppose we should get into it. Now, last week we were talking about Batman stuff. Remember Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. And one of the questions that came up was whether I actually had the soundtracks on CD, and he didn't mention, I freaking can't remember. As it turns out, I do. So how about that? So I actually have Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. They're the prized collectibles of my collection. What do you reckon, Mr. Aaron? Worth millions.
They're great coasters, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly right. I could happily frisbee these out the car window. Look, I haven't gone to the trouble of getting brand new plastic, outer casings for them. So there you go. Yes, William, I am the showrunner, and running this show is not something I'm very, very good at. There's a face I haven't seen for a long time. Stacey. Oh, there we go. Good to see Stacey joining the show, which is absolutely awesome. And Sci-Fi's own the director's cut. Yes, more of us gurgling on. Very, very cool. And James likes your shirt. Oh, how about that? What do you reckon, dude?
I don't know. I like the Dags head shirt, but I haven't had that one on for a while. It's back at the shop.
There we go. Look at that. Give us a shot of the shirt, mate. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that. Woo! mate, there's a bit of excitement there. There's a whole lot of people licking their screens at the moment. So there you go. Oh, goodness gracious me. Now, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, this is a question to you, and Glenn has joined us. Now, it's good to say hello to Glenn because he's going through some medical issues at the moment. So I was definitely saying hello to Glenn from YouTube. Now, here's a question for you. Now, last year, I was actually rewatching one of my shows from last year, and someone had brought up the fact that they'd found this. Remember the Ushies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are they still around anymore, the bloody Ushies? Anyway, this is the Grogu of the Ushies that someone had apparently found, and the big thing about it's all the furry outfit and costume and bullshit, all that sort of crap, right? And at the time, we discussed what this thing was, because someone got this, opened the pack and got the Grogu, shoved the thing on eBay, right? And what they got was $1,200. That was about a year ago, right? So my question to you is, do you think this has held its value?
Well, every time I do the search for eBay items we do later in the show, this one often comes up, and I've seen some of them go for $2,000 to $3,000 still.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, do you personally think that's worth it?
Absolutely not. So,
yeah.
No, well, the interesting thing about that, they've done a lot of Ushies from different years, and one of the things they did was the Marvel discs about 3 years ago, and the Hulk one at the time was rare and going for about $300 to $400 on eBay. Now you can pick up entire sets of those, including the Hulk, for like 99 cents. So
Yeah.
I don't know with that kind of stuff why that one's held its value. Maybe because The Mandalorian is still so popular and there's a lot of fans. And I think it's one of those things where the previous sales sell the next one, where if someone has it, they put it up for a couple of thousand and it goes for that. But if they put it in a bidding thing at 99 cents, it wouldn't go for that much, I don't think. I don't think there's that many people who would go for it.
Very, very cool. I might bring it up. If this show's still on this time next year, I'll bring it up again and say, well, okay, 2020 it was this, 2021 it's that, and 2022 we'll have to wait and see. Now, very quickly, I just want to bring this up. I saw this advertised on TV just the other day. Woolworths is getting into their own Lego. Now, I know you're a bit of a Lego dude. What do you reckon? It's not even Lego. It's their own sort of creation, isn't it?
I know this will drive me nuts. Do you know why? Because kids will get it and they'll mix it in with their regular Lego, and this stuff is worth nothing compared to Lego. So anytime I get a secondhand collection, I'm going to have to be sifting through every single piece, making sure it's all genuine. Now, I think it's a smart idea because there will be people who want to get it and put it together. But to buy the entire set, it was something ridiculous, like 32 sets. Can you imagine having to go in and get every single one of them to build the whole collection? It's very smart of Woolworths. It is something that will be very popular, but it's probably not one that Lego fans will love.
See, the thing I wonder about it is because it's not Lego itself, it's probably their own creation, and the pieces probably may not fit exactly with real Lego, because I don't know how they got around this from a legal perspective, but anyway, good luck to them. And you're right. I mean, today it's the big thing. Everybody's going to collect it and buy it and whatever, and Woolworths can do one of two things. Either they can expand on the range and suddenly create their own like merchandising arm, or they can just say, we've had enough, and these things just end up in landfill because people just get sick of them, and they turn back to the real Lego. So there you go. There you go. Mike, who said something about Hasbro's vintage collection has been selling for AFA graded pieces. Insane! Yeah, well, we deal with insanity on the show. And of course,
that's actually really interesting because I found a sealed case of those and I put it up on the shop earlier in the week. I did a live opening and showed a couple, and I had so many people contact me and it all sold instantly, like for really crazy prices.
I mean, I watch that because I love seeing your opening. So I got to say, regarding the Woolworths thing, the only thing I've got to say about this, will it end up be the same as these bloody things that were like the big rage a couple of years ago? And I reckon half of them, if they haven't already, will end up in landfill. So I reckon it's complete just stupidity. I mean, why buy miniatures of these things? Just buy the real thing and be done with it. So there you go. Hang on. Sorry, Stacey said it's not true. It's not that good. I assume you mean the Lego stuff. So yeah, I think it's a great idea, but it's a bad idea at the same time. It'll all probably end up buried in the ground somewhere. All right. Sorry. Hang on. There's what wave was that, Aaron? What?
It had a couple of the foil releases in. So I can't remember. It was from about 2005, maybe. There was General Grievous and the Magna Guard and Obi-Wan from Revenge of the Sith. But you can check that out on the Aaron's Collectible page. I handled that most incompetently. Dags will be able to tell you from watching the video. And of course, I'm on for 5 minutes, and the next door comes and gives me free food. Like the whole day, no one comes in, and then I go online and someone's knocking at the door going, "It's the free food delivery." So, yeah, we're really professionals here.
So when you watch Aaron's previous video, he got the Princess Leia thing, right? That recites the entire, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. And he just sat there looking around the corner of the box at the camera while the thing played out for 2 minutes. And I was thinking, dude, that is bad TV. Oh, my goodness gracious. Regarding what you just said, yeah, Giles has them also. He's a bit of a happy camper. And you're right, Mark, everybody, it's just going to go nuts. And I agree with Aaron. It's a fantastic idea. But the proof will be in the pudding a couple of years from now, 5-6 years. They'll end up at Aaron's store, Woolworth sets that nobody wants, 5 or 6, 10 years from now. So there you go. And you're right, Michael, free food trumps everything. All right. Now we're going to move on to something very, very exciting. This is now Greg King. I hope you're paying attention, Greg, because we're going to be talking about something very, very cool. What have we got, Mr. Aaron?
So this is an update to our sort of collecting in lockdown, and everybody knows that I collect Doctor Who, and while we're in lockdown, I do all these crazy things like sit up all night and go to different countries and find all the online sales from different countries and go through them a shop at a time to see if I can find anything interesting. And a couple of weeks ago, I found something absolutely amazing, and it was on a Dutch eBay, would you believe? And it's a Doctor Who photo of a creature that I don't think a colour photo exists. Now, I think most Doctor Who fans would have an idea that there was some stage plays that were done in the 60s and 70s, and one of them was called Doctor Who and the Daleks, 7 Keys to Doomsday. And it wasn't one of the TV Doctors, but it did have Wendy Padbury, who was Zoe, playing his companion. And they had the Daleks in it, and they had what was called the Master of Khan, and they had a creature called the Chlorantulas. So if we go to the next slide, so that's the Chlorancula. It reminds me a bit of Morbius from Brain of Morbius. And it's got a big claw like Morbius. And I think it was set on Khan as well. So Terrence Dix wrote it, who was currently writing the show at the time. So he probably had a lot of the sort of similar ideas that he just moved across when he did Brain of Morbius later. So colour pictures of the Daleks exist, and colour pictures of the Master of Khan exist. But before we go to the next picture, I've got to give you a bit of a warning. I have never found a picture of the Chlorantular in colour, and I did a search through the internet, and I couldn't find one at all. And I found one on eBay, but before not the craw, but before I show it, I've got to give everyone a bit of a warning. This is a bit of a naughty Chlorantular, and the reason I don't think anyone has discovered it is because he was in a photo shoot for a girly magazine, a Dutch one. And so when I was on Dutch eBay doing searches for Doctor Who, this listing came up, and it didn't have a picture of the Chlorantular. It had a picture of girls in lingerie. And it just said like Doctor Who and then all this other stuff in Dutch. And I couldn't read any of it because I don't read Dutch. And I clicked on it, and it was like, sort of a girly magazine pictures. And then I go through all the pictures, and the last one actually was the Chlorantular from 7 Keys to Doomsday with a topless model draped over him. Now, obviously, we can't show the unedited picture on the show because it's a little bit rude for some of the people who might be watching. But I have tastefully draped a Doctor Who scarf over what Kenny Everett would call the rude bits. And so I think we can get away with showing it. But this is genuine. This is a picture of a Doctor Who monster.
Do you realise what you're doing? You've just dangled this carrot and just left it there. And you've got all your Doctor Who fans out there are chomping at the bit to look at this bloody picture thing. Aaron, shut up and show me the freaking photo. Who gives a shit where it came from?
I was drawing it out for as long as I could. Anyway, okay, so you have been warmed. You've been warmed. So close your eyes if you think this is a bit too racy for you, but there shouldn't be anything too bad here that's going to get us banned. What do you think, Dags? You've seen it.
Mate, what are you talking about? We're putting the freaking scarf on it, dude. There's the picture.
So there we go. So I think since the stage show first went out, no one knew what color the Crorantula was, and it kind of looks like an axon underneath its metal bits. And we haven't got a close up, but you might be able to see. You can see the guy's head inside the visor up there. So that is a genuine exclusive to rip it off the card. As far as I know, that image does not exist on the internet anywhere, and there's no Doctor Who fans that know about it. So I translated the Dutch, and it reads, Doctor Who has found a new victim in the attractive 20-year-old Gilly Johnson. But the mighty host of, sorry, I can't read it. It's a bit small, actually. But the mighty host of monstrous robot lobsters called Crorantulas are incapable of hurting a hair on Gilly's head, for who could harm such a sweet doll? And that's while the computer of the Crorantula, the master of the planet Khan, has been programmed to kill indiscriminately. So if you want to read the rest of that, you can. It'll be up on our site, and you'll be able to examine the picture much more closer. But that's the exclusive for the night. So any Doctor Who fans that have tuned in, I'm sure you will realise you have never seen that picture in colour before. So down the bottom, we also have the colour pictures of the Daleks and the Master of Khan that was in it. But that's a colour picture of the Chlorantula that no one knew existed.
Yeah, that's what Kelvin has said too. And like all these comments are coming about the scarf and all the rest of it. And yeah, I can't believe you're just dragging that. It's like, dude, don't worry about it. No one's going to be looking at the girl anyway. They're just going to be looking at the creature going, oh my God, check that, the Corlantula or whatever it's freaking called.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it? Like I didn't buy the girly magazine for the girls. I bought it for the Doctor Who monster with the huge claws.
All I could think of when you said, oh, it's from Khan, I was like, Khan! Straight out of Star Trek 2. Oh, my goodness. Yes, you're right, Jared. Yes, it's like once you start seeing the big M girls, I mean, this doesn't cut it at all. But I'll tell you what, though, fans, when Aaron came across this picture, he was having, I hate using the term nerdgasm, but it was pretty much what it was. He was like, oh, my God. It wasn't saying I found this hot chick in this Dutch magazine. No, bugger that. I found a Doctor Who creature in colour. How good is that? Oh, dear. No, hang on. You can see a bit through the scarf. That's called your imagination, Luke, because there's no way in the world you've been able to see that. Anyway, so there you go. You got yourself your colour correlation. Oh, freaking whatever it's called. And how good is that? So people like your Greg Kings of the world have just keeled off their chairs going, oh, my God, excitement plus. How good is it?
All I can say about that, having seen the full unedited picture for all the Doctor Who fans who are wondering, it does appear to be quite cold on the planet Khan.
Exactly right. Even though it's supposed to be quite hot. So there you go. Yeah, Luke wants to see the original. It's, what can I say? It's a bit hubba. So there you go. Yes, there are. Yeah, there's a couple of pretty good aspects regarding the original picture. But anyway, so it's time for us to move on. You've seen it, you've checked it out, and you watch all the Doctor Who people now leave the show and go and do something else. Very good on you, Gavin. Oh, bloody high beam. Very good. All right, so it's time for us to move on to something a bit more traditional. So let's get into it, shall we? That's it. Very, very good. I like this one. Link to the original research, you understand. Good on you, Greg. I love it when you say stuff like that. So very, very, very cool. All right, so what are we gas bagging about tonight? We've got some stuffs. Here we go. Actually, Chrissy's got a good point. You have to find something for the ladies. So there you go. You'll have to dig deep for that. And maybe, actually, Chrissy got us too, so maybe that'll help. Anyway, sorry, dude.
I'm sure I've got some stuff I could dig deep and find into some monstrous creatures draped over some guys for some time down the track in the girly edition of the show.
Get on with it.
Anyone who's a fan of He-Man Masters of the Universe will know that the big event every year is PowerCon, which is held in September. And I think last year it was called off. The year before, I had one of my friends, Rod, I don't know if he's watching tonight, went along with Rod and Sarah. Were there. PowerCon was over the weekend, and they revealed some of the new merchandise, and some of the stuff they had announced and shown before actually came out and was released as PowerCon exclusives. This was the Tweeterhead display. Tweeterhead are fast becoming one of the best statue producers and companies that release premium format statues. They have got, as you can see there, a fantastic Merman coming out in production, a He-Man on Battle Cat. You've got a Trapjaw there, and then above that, there's some finished pictures of with fully color of Hordak and a couple of other of He-Man there. If we go to the next one, these were the PowerCon exclusives. We did announce these when they came out and said try and pick them up online, and they sold within 5 minutes, and I couldn't even get ones for myself. But they're the final sets with the packaging that came out, and I think the best one there is Faker with Duplicate, which is the last one on the right. But I'm sure you'll be able to pick them up for stupidly inflated prices on eBay now that they've been released at PowerCon and sold out. And the next slide we have is just, a general shot of PowerCon, what you could expect. So you've got the booths there. There's a full-size statue of He-Man you could go and get your photo with. I think he's actually, looking at the guy there, he's actually bigger than full size. It's a massive He-Man. So anyone who's into Masters of the Universe, get online, check that out. It would have been a great weekend to get along to.
You know what? Some people are looking at the items going, oh, those collectibles are absolutely fantastic. But if you're like everybody else, you're looking at those pictures going, oh, just to go to an event with other people outside of the 5 kilometer radius, how good would that be? Oh, my goodness gracious me. It'd be very interesting to see at PowerCon how everybody went, now that the Revelations come out and there's like divided and split the fan base. Did they have to sort of like have pro fans on one side and anti fans on the other side? Never the twain shall meet, lest they come to blows.
There is more news. I think it's Amazon have announced there's going to be a new She-Ra show live action, and it's ignoring the cartoon that was popular on Netflix. So again, fandom has erupted into it should follow the animated, or it should follow the original. It should be totally different. So at the moment, no one knows what it's really going to be at all. So I'm just happy that there's more genre shows coming out on stuff that I love from my childhood.
Yeah, I would have thought the She-Ra one wouldn't be so bad because it wasn't. It's if you don't like it, you just don't watch it, right? But Masters had such a big build-up, or the Revelations had such a big build-up with what's his name, Kevin Smith involved, and all the rest of it. It was a continuation of the animated series. They said it was meant to be like a next episode from the '80s series, and for that reason, you're thinking, well, it's like when Doctor Who came back after like a 12-year absence or whatever, and the fact that it's split the fan base as it has, you do wonder at PowerCon for all these decades have gone, everybody's one big happy family, but now the family is not so happy anymore. But anyway, there we go. Yeah. And Dave even certainly didn't agree with it. So so you do wonder, which is kind of sad, but anyway, it's the way it goes, I suppose. All right, so we move on now. We've got some start. Now, the picture's a bit blurry because they're all low-grade pictures, but you'll sort of see what it's all about. There you go. What have we got?
And because we're doing an Empire Strikes Back display tonight, I thought I would report this. These are a couple of years old, but they're still available. That's very tasteful wall art of the Empire Strikes Back, taken from the carry cases from the 80s, which was always some of my favorite artwork. They had the Star Wars carry case, and then there were 2 different pieces of art for the Empire Strikes Back one, and then the Return of the Jedi one, which is a much harder one to find if you're looking for the original. These are wooden plaques that you can order, and they attach to the wall. So there are a lot of sort of cash-in stuff that you get produced for Star Wars, but I think these are quite nice and they're quite tasteful. And if you've got a collection of original toys, there's a lot worse things you could have up on your wall than the artwork from the original carry cases.
Yeah, I like it, but I don't understand the point of it. Artwork is artwork, and there's a lot of fantastic artwork out there. You'd have to be pretty diehard to say, yes, I want artwork from the carry cases on the wall. And I do agree, it does look good. I just don't see the logic of it. As a collector yourself, would you be saying, oh, because I collected the action figures, I want these pictures on my wall? Would you do that?
I don't know. Like, I'm not allowed to have much on my wall.
No, if you could, is it the kind of, would you take down your ultra rare one-sheet movie poster from whatever and put these up in its place?
I would. They're small enough that they can fit in the back of cabinets, and I would put them in the back of cabinets to display the figures in front of, and I think they'd look quite good.
I guess it's probably because I was thinking that maybe one thing you could do is just get really good high-res images of the cases and just get them blown up and do it yourself. But I suppose maybe those images don't exist. So in that regard, it's quite probably quite handy. But I think it's been very, very sort of a selective amount of interest. Even people who collect action figures may go, I like it, but I don't want to hang them pictures on my wall. So, but Joel didn't think much of it. So
Mike is saying the hardest one to get is the original Star Wars case with the Empire Strikes Back logo. I think I've got one sitting out the back in the shop. So
of course you have, but you're not in the shop, so we can't show you. So, Mike, too bad, so sad.
PM me later.
Don't believe a word of it. But I think they're kind of groovy. But as to whether I'd be, I don't know, take them or leave them, I suppose. But there you go. And you are right, Chrissy. You could easily have placemats. Make them as placemats. That'd be kind of cool. So it depends on which character you're going to eat off today. Anyway, enough crapping on. We've got this. Yay, team. Oh, yes. Bit of Greg King's Cheaper Things. And there's a long story regarding this. So what have we got tonight, Mr. Aaron?
Well, as anyone who's been watching the last couple of weeks, Greg King's Cheaper Things, Greg's been helping us when stuff comes up online that is just too good to be true and could possibly be a scam. We've been ordering them to see what turns up because some of the stuff just seems too good to be true. And this week, we've got something that's pretty awesome. It is replica leather-bound books from popular movies from the 80s. And what's interesting about this one is these hit Facebook a month or two ago. And one of our regulars here, Spankin, I actually sent a link to him and said, these are pretty good value, dude. And they're pretty good replicas. Do you think they're real? And he got back to me a bit later and he goes, I'm pretty sure they're fake. And one of the things to sort of indicate they're fake is if you look at the different pictures of them, particularly the Never-Ending Story, there's one where it's a nice brown book with all the gilt work on the corner of it. And then the one that you're ordering is like totally different from the one in the other picture. So when the product differs from picture to picture, sometimes you have got to wonder what you're actually ordering when you get it. But if we go to the next slide, this happened because I passed on it. And then if you look at the top, that's the original ad where they were $39 US each. And then I got this alert, like one day only, 50% off. So instead of 39, they were 33, which again, doesn't make much sense.
I'm going to just cut you off there. So look at this. Cue up the monkey. I see a spanking. So that must mean it's this. Couldn't help myself. Yes. Anyway, just cut you off. Yes. So there's actually some people are already starting to say they look a tad sus and all the rest of it. So yes. Want the next picture?
Well, I'm just going to say about that. When something comes up as $39 originally, and then they say there's a flash sale and it's 50% off, and the price is down to $33.99, that's when I was like, I've got to buy these to see what turns up. So if we go to the next slide. So yes, I put them all in the cart, and apparently if you bought 2, it was 10% off, or 3, it was 20% off. Anyway, when I put it in the cart and went for the percentage, it didn't give me a discount. So even though they advertised it as if you buy, because I was going to buy one and I thought, oh, look, if I'm going to get a bigger discount, I'll buy the whole set and see how this goes. So there was no way after I put them in the cart to actually get the discount. So they were giving me them for the little fire sale 50% off, which wasn't 50% off at all. But the additional discount that you said you'd get over on top of that, if you bought all of them, that didn't come through at all. But not unperturbed, Greg and I decided it was still worth taking a punt on them. So as you can see, it worked out at $109 US, which was about $143. So for Greg King's Cheaper Things, already we've been reeled in, and he's probably having conniptions by how much this was actually costing us in the end, because this was meant to be a cheap and nasty thing. But we've ordered them. We're going to see what turns up. And so far, nothing has turned up. If we go to the next slide of our table of thrift, over the last 3 weeks, we've ordered a Transformer mystery box for $45, which hasn't turned up. We've ordered a Commander Cody clone helmet for $63, which hasn't turned up. And now we've just ordered the set of 3 leather-bound books that hopefully we'll get in a couple of weeks that hasn't turned up. So hopefully this segment will pay off when stuff starts coming through and we can open it up and we can see if we really truly got a Greg King's Cheaper Things bargain, or if we were just stiffed and got ripped off.
I like the. Hang on, sorry, Joe said, yeah, prices are getting less and less cheap. So before you know it, you'll be spending a fortune on something that is meant to be cheap. Hang on, here we go. Even Greg himself was saying it's worth $2 at the most. So there you go. And you watch the people who are delivering these things will be saying, oh yeah, the COVID, the lockdowns, man, we can't get anything to you for the next 20 years. Unbelievable. So there you go. I love that one. Table of Myth. That's a good name for it, actually. I really like that.
Table of
goodness
Fantasy.
gracious me.
But interestingly, this week we've got a video to play now. It's to do with Greg King's Cheaper Things. This is something we haven't had before on this show. Do you want to play that?
It's very exciting. Feel free to everybody out there to put in your own words. So there you go. Look at that. This is Aaron's great work. Yeah, so we got one.
This is the rider participation button. Someone has actually sent something in, and it was either for Greg King's Cheaper Things or for the Vile segment, because you'll see in a second why it could kind of fit into both. Again, this is Dave Spankin, who's a good friend of the show. And
Hang on. Did you say Spankin?
And he got in contact with me, and and this is some of the quotes from the message. I got ripped off on Etsy. I was ripped off big time, but I like the one underneath. He bought a Raiders idol. Photo looked like the film prop, but what arrived looked like an Uber driver after getting his prostate checked. So for those who don't know, this is the movie prop and this is the ad. It's a tiny little picture that you couldn't really blow up. So the big pictures I've got there are the actual movie prop, and there's a couple of different versions of the prop, and this is the one that had the movable eyes. There is just a gold version that you can't really tell different, but originally the prop had I guess they were amber color eyes that were meant to move around as Indy walked through the Yep, Dags.
I just realised that I'm looking at the idol's eyes, and I'm looking at Greg King's eyes just up here. And I tell you what, there's a link there. I tell you what, because when you said, "Oh, that's the real prop from Raiders," and I was thinking, "But is that a real Greg King as well? Does he come part of the sale?" Anyway, sorry, I catch off.
Maybe he's a fake Greg. Maybe he's a fake Greg King, and that's why I got sucked into buying $150 worth of books.
I love it. And Spankin is actually with us at the moment, and he actually said he was informed today by someone in the USA the UPs in not delivery. There you go. What did I just say a moment ago? There you go.
There you go. Well, it's going to be a long payoff for this segment then, but most of the stuff's coming from China, so we should be right. But anyway, so I think the version of the prop they were going for was the one with non-gold eyes that kind of, were meant to follow you around the room as they as you moved around. But this is what turned up. So you can see that Dave does have a genuine looking prop down on the bottom right corner there, and the one that turned up next to it. And you can understand why he thought it looked like some guy having a prostate check, because let's just say that's quite a poor replica of the Raiders of the Lost Ark prop that could have fit into the Vile file as well. But because we are warning people not to buy it because it's a rip-off, I thought it was better to go into Greg King's Cheaper Things. Now,
very good. As the idol said, there's a party between my legs and everybody's invited. So it looks a bit wrong, doesn't it, on a lot of levels?
It really does.
Yes, indeed. Joel's. Is this kind of thing you wouldn't go buy, Joel? Imagine they had to use this version in the movie rather than the proper version. Don't think it would have had the same impact, So
I know. So you know what we think about. You know what we think about this, don't you, Dags? Let's go to the next.
It has what?
That's poor value. So here's our warning. If you were looking to buy a Raiders of the Lost Ark head, and I've got to say, there was a lot of them turning up on eBay about a month ago, and Dave probably, not on eBay, on Facebook, Dave probably saw it on Facebook and went to Etsy, because I was looking at all this cool stuff. You don't get fooled. Let us buy it first and check it out for you before you put your money on the table.
Loved it, eh? Absolutely. And Greg King's Cheaper Things, he's going, that is awesome. That is a $2 special if ever there was one. So there you go. Yeah, Moon Ripper, I love it. Very, very cool. And apparently Spankin did get his money back. So there you go, because the product was complete tripe. So there you go. All right, now we're going to move on. So once we finish one segment, the only thing we can do then is move on to another segment. And this time, of course, it's the Vile File. Everybody loves the Vile File. I can't remember who it was last week. I think it was Jared or whoever it was said that they got to be careful how they hold their wine during this segment because things tend to have a bit of spillage, if you know what I mean. So there you go. Throw me the idol. All right. So what have we got tonight, old son?
So the Vile has been on a bit of a holiday, and he's been sending us postcards, and this is his postcard from Disneyland. So obviously that means tonight's episode is going to be about Disneyland memorabilia, but the Vile has found so much to be violated in the Magic Kingdom that we're going to concentrate on one character at a time. So this week we're looking at, I guess, a kid's favourite. It was one of Kale's favourites when we were growing up. It's that lovable bear, Winnie the Pooh. Oh dear.
That's a real case of oh bother, isn't it?
It really is. Oh, Tigers love to bounce. But here we go. Here we go. Obviously, someone who was in charge of like approving stuff didn't really think about what they were letting through when this Winnie the Pooh Stack the Rings game was released. You've got Winnie the Pooh relaxing on his back, and it's one of those things where the more rings you take off, the ruder it looks. This was obviously one of those things that I guess got through, and you can see in the top there, there's one at an op shop somewhere, and it must have been withdrawn pretty fast because of the connotations it had. Yeah, Dax.
Yeah, don't forget though, the important thing is about like with the rings, they represent your age. So the more rings around the trunk, the better you are.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know you can count a horse's age from their teeth, but that soft toy proves you should never, ever, ever give Winnie the Pooh teeth, because that's looking pretty horrific. Can you imagine if you were a little kid and that was sitting at the end of your bed or on a chair watching you through the day, watching over you during the night? You would not want to be, you'd be turning that around. That's worse than the poltergeist clown, I think, if you had that sitting in your room. The other thing there, we've talked before about Disney's placement of straws in their sipper cups. Now, we've got a double violated item here, because you've got Tigger, who seems to have mounted Winnie the Pooh, who we can see from the picture underneath has a huge appendage sticking out of him, probably into Tigger. But the placement of the straw, where you would suck the honey pot, I guess, because that's what it's made to look like, is another totally inappropriate thing, because you've got Tigger's tail there, and I don't know if his tail actually clips onto the top to close the straw, but that means that the straw is something totally different and foreign that is inserted into Tigger's rear end. So
all I can say is don't drink chocolate milk, and for whatever you do, don't spill it. So
oh yes, it gets worse. So here we have a Winnie the Pooh costume, and apparently this was at an amusement park, maybe in Poland, I think I was reading. So the Vile gets around. The guy was fired on his first day because he accidentally put the pants on backwards. So you've got Winnie the Pooh walking around with his towel around the front instead of the back. Now, some of the other products there is more of a design flaw because of misplacing the design. Up the top, we've got like a bag with a zipper on, and obviously the character pattern repeats. But where they've managed to cut it and put the stop it, Dags. This is a serious program. Put the repeat pattern. You've got the pattern at the top of one Pooh standing upright, and the pattern down the bottom of another Pooh with his head in the honey pot. But when you put the two Poohs together, oh dear Lord, that looks rude. And then we've got actual over the Winnie the Pooh section. in a toy shop, they've put two Winnie the Pooh hangers, one with Winnie eating out of his honey pot, and the other with Pooh Bear asleep. But when you put them together, again, oh dear Lord, where is Pooh getting his honey from? A very inappropriate place, boys and girls. And then some of the other products that are associated. There was a Winnie the Pooh post-it note, which just has Winnie the Pooh's backside, and you're meant to write on that and tear a strip off. I don't know why anyone would come up with that. And then one of the weirder things, a Winnie the Pooh blanket, where instead of putting Winnie the Pooh's honey in yellow, they decided to make it white. And Winnie the Pooh, rather than looking friendly and amiable, just looks damn creepy. So if you decked your hall out with all this stuff, the Winnie the Pooh blanket, the Winnie the Pooh bag, the sipper cup, your kid's going to have some serious problems, I think.
I didn't hear any of that. I'll be struggling to read this and keep my shit together, and obviously have it. My other half walked in, stood in front of the camera looking at the stuff, not realizing we're on the air. So, oh my goodness gracious. So I hope what you said made a lot of sense, because I didn't hear a word of it. So, yeah, that's. Oh, Jesus.
Well, the crazy thing about this, Lord Lyle was going to do the whole of Disneyland, but he sent us so much material. It looks like every character in Disneyland is going to get an episode at one stage. Now, this is a very creepy picture. I don't know if you can see. You've got like all these Winnie the Poohs and one girl there with all the Winnie the Poohs just pointing at her, and that just reminds me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Actually, very, very creepy.
Now, Jared has said we started. Actually, we didn't start there. Everything you saw was legitimate photos. We just brought it up. We didn't actually do it. So we're professing our innocence. So there you go. This is why Mark enjoys the old Wednesday night. So there you go. Do you know
what that picture proves, though, Dags? If you're walking through the 100-acre wood, you've got to watch out, because there's so much poo you could step in.
Oh, I tell you what. Hang on. Sorry. Hang on. Whoa. I'm struggling to keep. Hang on, I've got button poo going everywhere. Yes, right. That's a lot of poo. Hang on, and just finally, so Christy said her childhood has been violated. It hasn't been violated. It has been violated.
So yes, that was our first trip to the Magic Kingdom. I think Lord Vile has outdone himself with this one, but there's plenty more to come next week.
Indeed. And you're right, Dicko. There's always room for a longer one. That's the most important thing. So there you go. Oh, my goodness. How good was that? So very, very, very oh, jeez. Classic stuff. All right. But we must move on. Otherwise, we'll never get this show done. We said 2 hours, and we're struggling to probably even make that. So there you go. All right. So it's time for something. Yeah, keep the comments coming. It's absolutely fantastic. It's time for a bit of this. Ooh, baby, do you know that's oh, dear. No poos on this one. What do we got tonight, Mr. Aaron?
So this week, because we're doing Empire Strikes Back as the main feature, I thought I would trawl the internet to look at Empire Strikes Back memorabilia, or in particular, some of the stuff that we might have in our homes or had at one stage, and see what it's going for now.
Very good. And for those who aren't familiar, there's a lot of people watching now. I had 29 a moment ago. For those who aren't familiar with what you got to do, these items have already sold. So we just need you to put in your prices as to what you think they sold for. What do we got tonight, mate?
This actually was one of my favourite videos growing up. You couldn't buy this at the time when it was released. It was the special effects of Empire Strikes Back, and I think I hired this out of the video library about 8 times and then bought it off of them when they had one of their clearance selling stuff. So this was one of those original makings of. There was a makings of Star Wars, and there was the special effects of Empire Strikes Back. I always found this one much harder to find. They've since been released on DVD as extras. So this is a VHS of a hard-to-find Star Wars-related item. How much do you think this is going to go for?
Yeah, this was the closest thing you could get to a making of The Empire Strikes Back, and yeah, it was really good. SPFX, very, very groovy. All right, so Joel said 722. Sorry, yeah, 722. Moneybag Sullivan has said 50. Spankin's at 250. Ange is at 88. Dave's at 113. I love that one. Luke is at 800. Natasha with the little dude is at 200. Jess at 350. Remember, it's only a videotape. $10 for Christy. Kevin has said 50. Gavin is at 80. Adrian is at 125. Colin's at 155. Jared's at 220. Everything's blurry because I was laughing so much. Joshua said 20. Rob's at 250. The Vial bought this for $5 at Star Walking. Oh, there you go. That's how cheap we were back then. 550 for Thomas, 350 for Carol, 400 for Mark, 25 for William. And I've just got to scroll down. Michael has said 90. Jimmy, I don't know who Jimmy is, but Jimmy, welcome to the show. Absolutely good to see you. Is at 150. And Mr. Phil from the Doctor Who Club. I hope you saw the Doctor Who stuff earlier, Mr. Phil, at 175. So there you go. $10 my video still back in the yes, exactly right. So yeah, it's funny is that like some people have put in some really, really high prices for this. We know it's one, most people can't play it, and two, you get it in a different format. So very, very cool. All right, so 1980 release. I remember when this came out, it was fantastic, and it went for a whopping $100, 99 to be precise. What do you reckon?
And 10 people bid on that, and I actually think that's a really fantastic cover as well. Just the Darth Vader, SPFX, Empire Strikes Back. That's a great piece. Probably worth every dollar of its $99.
I think the closest so far I've got Gavin is short by 20. He's at 80.
Michael had 90.
Oh, yes, he did too. So, Michael, yeah, you looks like you got it. You add an extra $10 in and you're good to go. So, very groovy. But still, it's a lot of money for a videotape, that's for sure. So, because you're not buying it for the material because you can get that anywhere. You're actually buying it purely for the collectability, which is cool. Here we go. Cards. Love them.
Here we go. So this is a set of Empire Strikes Back cards. These were released at the same time as the film was released. Actually, they were released a little bit earlier than the film. This is a full set of Australian Scanlan's Empire Strikes Back cards, 132 cards from 1980. How much would you expect to pay?
Phil, you missed the Doctor Who stuff earlier. Yeah, you definitely want to go back and check it out, sir, because you will, if you're like Greg King, lose your load, as it were. So there you go. Joel, cheap in your opinion for the SPFX? Yeah, fair enough. No, there's no arguments there too. So there we go. All right, trading cards. Even I had a set of these back in the day. $2.45 for Gavin, 50 for Colin. And I just want to say, for the first time ever, we had 30 people watching us at one time, which is a record breaker. $2.70 for Jared. Oh, my goodness. 1138 for Dave again, 90 for Spankin, 200 for Josh, 300 for Luke, 250 for Carol. Natasha and the little dude is at 150. Joel's at 320. Kelvin's at 75. Jess is at 175. Adrian's at 111. Mick, good to see Mick joining the show, is at 125. Rob's at 150. Mike, there were no stickers with this set. It was just straight cards back in the day. Ange is at 115. Phil's at 200. Moneybag Sullivan is at 290. Mark is at 335. And Chrissy's at 65. So how good? I don't think there's anybody else. Violating the cards, Michael. Oh, sorry. Williams at 300. 25 Republic credits for the Vial. And good old Jimmy at 150. So there you go. Yeah, the number of the clear dropped after the porno thing. So, yeah, so I mean, interesting because I remember these cards were quite common. It's the second series that never got released in this country. So this series was actually quite common everywhere. And because of the number one card looking as good as it did, because you remember the Star Wars cards didn't have a number one card that looked as good, it was certainly a good set to get. 132 of them. So there you go. Very, very cool. And Michael said 120. Do you get gum with them? I would assume not. And Thomas said 300. All right, so what do you reckon they went for? They are used 1980, and Connie's joined. I'm not sure who Connie is, but good to see you, Connie, at $95. Absolutely fantastic. We went for a whopping $100, mate. What is worth 100? What's the deal?
There you go.
I'll tell you what, Connie, you've only just joined us, and I think you might already have this. So
and you won straight away. You slipped in at the last moment and grabbed them. Someone mentioned about the stickers. The Australian set didn't come with stickers. The American set did. The Australian set did come with gum. I have tried some of the 80s gum a couple of years ago. It's now crunchy and tastes like mothballs, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
You wuss, mate. Just harden up and just shove it in your gate and away you go. Because what you used to do is try and get as much gum in your mouth as at one time as physically possible. So there you go. But $100, I go, yeah, okay, I sort of get it and I don't get it. But these things were common everywhere back in the day. So, but I suppose to get a full set, yeah, fair cool. All right, so yeah, good on you, Connie. Look, you've just joined the show and you've won. You just got an extra $4 in and you're ready to party. How good is that? All right, very, very cool. All right, next one. What do we got? Cups.
Well, I don't know if people remember these. Here's a complete set of Empire Strikes Back McDonald's Coca-Cola cups. I've got these somewhere buried away, and mine are in the same condition. I think it's one of those things where all of them that turn up now look a bit ratty because the colour goes a bit yellow, and even if they're in storage and well looked after, material doesn't last forever. These don't turn up a lot, but they are quite desirable, being from Empire Strikes Back, and a lot of kids grew up with them, so they've got those memories associated with them. How much for your free Coca-Cola cups?
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty hard to find these in absolutely pristine condition because you're right, they do lose color over a period of time. And yeah, it's a tough one. They're rare, but they're not that desirable. So it's yeah, it sort of makes you wonder. All right, so Gavin has kicked us off at 25. Jared's at 300. Bloody hell, like $100 a cup. 15 for Colin, 25 for Adrian. Ange said 33. Mick has said 60. Thomas said 7, so he's not very optimistic about this. Luke is at 100. Spanker's at 65. Joel's at 100. Moneybag Solomon's at 30. Kelvin's also at 30. Joshua's at 75. Natasha and the little dude is at 30 smackaroos. Oh, there we go. $15 for Rob. Jess has said 85. Jack has said $2 each. Because he's a Doctor Who fan. This stuff doesn't appeal to him at all. William's at 100. Michael said 6. Mark is also around, figures at 100. Violating the cups is the Violet 101. And you are right, Gavin, they do get very, very brittle. They will break very easily. Where are we? Carol's at 300. Phil's at 80. Jimmy's at 61. And Connie, who I got the last one, is at 22. So how good is that? And Christy's at 85. So remember, kids out there, if you're doing this for the first time, don't Google it. Don't cheat. Just take a guess. It's all part of the fun. You don't win anything if you get this, so except the bragging rights. So Empire Strikes Back complete set. So there's only just 3 in the set, was there? Oh, that's kind of bizarre. So there you go. Hang on, a set of 3 ounces. Sorry, I read it wrong. So there you go. McDonald's Coca-Cola cups, which probably means there was a 4th cup in the set. Do you know that at all?
Yeah, I think there was 4 cups to this set.
Oh, no, missing one. So there you go. And you watch that. Well, last cup will cost you like $60,000, and the price went for a whopping $100. Why is everything $100? You just pick everything that's exactly the same, did you?
I don't know. I think someone guessed 100 even. I think someone guessed 99. I think there was someone who
you're right. Oh, mate, how's that? Beaten by $1. William, the Doctor Who fan, has got it. How good is that? Anything you want to say about the cups before we move on?
Just you're right. They are quite brittle and often turn up broken. It's one of those things that don't last because people find them in their garage and instead of selling them, just throw them out because they think, oh, these are a crap kind of thing. I think there were a couple of people that bid 100 actually, so someone will have to share the cups, like two nerds, 3 cups.
Yeah, good on you. So Joel said 99 and he got pipped at the post, as you said, by William, who had the $1 extra dollar makes all the difference, doesn't it? So there you go. Very, very cool. So you think there was only 3? It's surprising because McDonald's, when they do sets of things, they're always in 4s. So I'm not entirely sure why.
I did think it was a 4-cup set, but maybe there is only 3.
Okay, so Luke said 100 first. So, yeah, okay, you guys can split up 1 cup each and have a party and yay team. All right, here we go. More bloody videos.
Here we go. Well, it was a bit of a video week because I was seeing a lot of videos come up. When you actually look for Empire Strikes Back rather than Star Wars, there isn't as big a range of items as you'd think there would be. So I thought I'd pull up a couple of unusual videos. Here's another video of Empire Strikes Back. This is one of the earlier releases. Again, I don't think this is a sell-through. I think this was a video library size cassette. So the only way you could get these if you got them ex-video library or if you knew a nice person who owned a video library that would order one for you to add to your collection. So it used to cost a fortune, but the prices of tapes, is quite up and down. How much is this one?
Good question. All right, Adrian said 33. Gavin, everybody's going for the 9s now. They've learned from the previous items, so he's gone for the round 100. Jess is at 250. Colin, he's at 10. Jared's at 270. Luke is at 100 as well. He's definitely learned from the last one. Joshua is at 20. Everybody's following the same thing. Oh, she's knocked 10 cents off. I'd love that. Oh, hang on. The screen has just raised up. Angie's at 4, so he's optimistic about this. Rob's at 55. Mick's at 45. Spanker's at 75. Christy's at 5. Here we go. Mark is at 8. Phil's at 100. And the little dude, I love it. The little dude is guessing 20. I'd love it if the little dude got this. And Natasha herself is at 100. I love the little dude. So Joel has said 190. Moneybag Sullivan has said 100. 50 for Kelvin. 100. Oh shit. William's at 100. Thomas, everybody's doing the $99 thing now. Jimmy's at 50. Connie's at 180. Violating this videotape is the Violet 49. Glenn Beatty said 40, and Michael has said 150. It's a tricky one because these things were available everywhere, but as you said, Aaron, yeah, to buy one, they were quite expensive. Anyway, rare 1984 original, very exciting stuff in the clamshell, and it went for a whopping $100. Oh, you're killing me, dude. I'm not going to go look at. There you go, straight away. William, you got it, son. Go home. No, he's got it. Oh my goodness gracious me!
So,
how about that?
Yeah. Who would
Anything
have
you want
thought?
to say?
Who would have thought? Like years later, the price is such a roller coaster on the VHS tapes, which brings us to our next item.
Very, very cool. I'm going to say, look, all the $99 ones we've had, and now we get one that's around $100. Absolutely love it. Oh, not a bloody video!
So this is another copy of the Empire Strikes Back VHS. This is again an X-Video Library one. I remember this having being the harder cover to find. This one, of course, is going to be worth less because it's got all the video library stickers still on it, and it isn't in as good condition. So that would, of course, mean that this one is going to go for a lot less than the previous one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, when you said it was harder, all of a sudden I just started having images of Winnie the Pooh pop into my head. All right, Lucas. Okay, now don't everybody pick 100. All right, so there you go. Lucas at 100, Colin's at 100, Ange at 100, Jess at 101. Good on you, Gavin. You broke the trend. 150. Adrian's at 11. Joshua's at 20. Where are we? 50 for Phil. Moneybag Sullivan is at 101. Thomas at 1,000. Oh, you're optimistic. 85 for Mick. Carol's at 50. Michael's at 50. Jared's at 101. Kelvin's at 70. Spankin's at 75. Mark is at 99 cents. Oh, that's only $1. Christy said $5. Joel said 722. Bloody hell. Carol is at 51. And Natasha and the little dude is 65.50. You're right. William's at 100. How original is that? Glenn's at 80. Violating this at 66. Fried Jedi's love it. Rob is at 75. Jimmy is at 50. Jeffrey is at 10. Connie is at 73, which is absolutely fantastic. If this goes for 100, I'm coming to your house, curfew or not, and beating you up with it. And Greg, thank you, Greg, has gone in with a $2 bin. Absolutely love it. So there you go. Thomas said you had too many zeros. Well, you never know, mate. If it's $1,000, you will be getting this. Anyway, 1980 release Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, all the rest of it. And it went for, don't you dare say 100. $1. Oh, God. How about that?
So I think Mark got that one at 99 cents, right on the money. But this is one of those things that just shows you where the same item and the same rarity from the same year, and it just takes two people to want something, and suddenly the price goes through the roof, where maybe if that second person waited for the next copy to turn up, they'd get it for the minimum bid.
That's ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely insane. It makes no sense whatsoever. And yeah, you can't predict these things. And who said $1,000? They're off by bloody miles. So,
well, do you know what the $1,000 was? That was if you borrowed it from the video library and you forgot to take it back. That's the fees you'd be up for now.
Yeah, exactly right. I love it. Greg, normally with his $2, he just chucked it in because he's got nothing better to do. You would have got that if it wasn't for the other bid for, so Mark is happy. $1. Oh my God, it kills you, doesn't it? So, and it's $12 to post it. So, absolutely disgraceful.
But you remember a couple of weeks ago, the entire 150 video set of Doctor Who went for 99 cents as well. So you just can't tell. eBay is one giant conundrum sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, and you're right, Jared. Maybe it hasn't been rewound. That's why it's so cheap. So ridiculous. So there you go. All right, everybody, how good was that? Oh my God, it's just insane. We're running so far behind. It's like we've got 1 hour to do the presentation. I get the feeling we're not going to do it. So there you go. Anything you want to say before we move on, Mr. Aaron?
Thanks for everyone for participating. Let's move on.
Very good. And Jared, you're right. He bought that for $1. I bought that for $1, and he did. How good is that? All right, so we're talking about the big thing for tonight. It is, of course, a special presentation. It is about the Empire Strikes Back. What do you want to say, Mr. Aaron?
Well, first off, if anyone wants any of these pictures to use as desktop screensavers and stuff like that and backgrounds, we upload them to the Sci-Fi Zone page afterwards, so you can do that. Last time we did this, we finished off looking at the Star Wars merchandise, and retailers were sort of moving into expectation of the next movie in the saga, The Empire Strikes Back. And this was sort of the last slide we had on our Star Wars presentation, where Star Wars was still an unknown quantity at the time, where people weren't sure if it was going to be as successful after one movie. So the first range of toys came out and were shown to toy sales at different shows, and people weren't actually sold on them. After this amazing Star Wars movie, retailers came out and go, there's these characters called Tauntauns that look like giant kangaroos, but they're vehicles. We just don't know if kids are gonna like this stuff. And there were some toy makers that were quite anxious because they'd, like George Lucas, bet the farm by paying for Empire himself. They'd sunk lots of money into this to buy all this Star Wars merchandise, and they were not sure if when the movie came out the market was going to be there as big as it was for the first one. Were the fans still going to be there, or had they moved on to something else? So Empire Strikes Back, as crazy as it seems now, it was an unknown quantity and wasn't sure if it would be a hit, and it wasn't sure if they were going to sell any merchandise from this movie.
So Jared has said it's still the favorite of all the movies. I think by and large of all the Star Wars movies ever produced, it's in the top one or two. People just flip them around, and you hope Empire. There might be the odd one or two that pop out and say something different, but I mean, like Lucas said, it's he absolutely loves it, and it's you are right. At the time, it's hard to imagine people saying, "Oh, we're not sure how it's going to be," and then the proof is in the pudding. So, yeah. I remember when I saw the trailer, I thought it can do no wrong, and as far as I'm concerned, it didn't. So there you
go. I don't remember if I remember what I thought when I saw the original trailer. I probably saw it somewhere. I don't really remember. I was probably only about 8 or 7 at the time, but I did go and see it when it originally came out. Me and my brother were like, "We've got to go see this. We've got to go see this. We've got to go see this." Lots of people went and saw it. It wasn't something that was a flash in the pan with the original Star Wars. The crowds did come out for Empire Strikes Back. And this is some of the earliest pictures from different print ads from Empire Strikes Back. So you got the advanced print from the newspaper of the movie coming out and the initial reviews before the movie came out and where it was playing and a countdown to when it was going to come out. And the crowds were there and people slept overnight and there were lines for it. So it was going to be a genuine success. But would this translate to popularity in the toy aisles?
I love this one from Christy. So she saw it at the trailer in the drive-in for the Muppet movie. Oh, there you go. So very, very cool. I first saw it on TV and I thought, oh, that was really, really cool. That was the one with the trailer where they do all the split screen effect with the characters.
That is actually the one I remember seeing the split screen effect on TV, but I wasn't sure if I saw it before the movie or some time down the track. But
and it's where they say new heroes and new worlds, and that's when they show Lando and whatever else. Now we've actually got a video we've got to show. Now I'm going to take a couple of seconds to tee this up because my hard drive has fallen asleep, so you may have to have a bit of a natter about something before we show this.
Talk about this. We found some footage that I don't think has been generally seen online. It is online and you can find it, but I don't think a lot of people have seen it. Now, this is footage from the day Empire Strikes Back was released, and what's interesting about this, it isn't about the movie, it's about the toys.
Before I show this now, do you want to show this full screen or still have us appear in the side? I
think just do it full screen.
Full screen. All right, cool. No worries. And the key thing to watch with this is to listen to the guy's the person being interviewed, his very last comment. It's amazing how ironic he happened to be. So there you go. You sit back and enjoy it. It goes for a couple of minutes, by the way, fans. So there you go.
Star Wars, in fact, has become almost a staple category. Took over for what at one time was cowboys and Indians and one time was military, has now become space. Surprisingly, in a category that became this volatile so quickly, the product has been extremely good. And I think this is attributed to the manufacturers taking the time before they put the product out to make sure that there was some quality control in it. Once the movies are released, there's a tremendous impact. And of course, just about any product that has Star Wars is gobbled off the shelf. I think you're going to find that with the release of the Empire, that the children are going to come out, and the teenagers, if you will, are going to be looking for product tied in directly to The Empire Strikes Back.
I noticed you browsing through the Star Wars figures, checking out the new ones. Is this for yourself?
No, it's for my 8-year-old son.
I've got a little brother who loves them,
Mm-hmm.
and he uses them all the time.
He likes the stuff?
He loves it. He's very eager to see the Empire Strikes Back, which I know starts today.
Well, how about the older kids your age? I mean, nobody's collecting them like, as a
No.
fad or anything?
No one. They used in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
when they first came out. Now it's just getting old.
The figures are the easiest to produce. They mass produce them. It's a relatively inexpensive item that if your son or daughter is a Star Wars fan, the first thing they're going to ask for are the figures. And it's a lot easier to go down and spend a couple dollars on a figure than it is to go spend, let's say, $10, $15, or $20 on a playset. And it's a staple as a category. There's no individual item that would be a staple, so to speak, because you're going to find that with the changing of the sequence of the movies, there's going to be new characters introduced, and these other characters will eventually die out. So it'll be the Star Wars theme carried through. I don't think anybody knows exactly what kind of product we're going to be looking at in 6, 7, 8, 10 years in Star Wars, but there certainly will be new characters at that time. I'm sure there'll be Star Wars merchandise around for at least another 25 or 30 years.
So first things first, I edited that myself. So the original version is completely different. Okay, so I thought I'd just chuck that in. So if you want to see that version anywhere, you won't, because I did that. So what do you want to say, mate?
Well, thanks for putting that together. That's absolutely amazing. So we'll probably put that up on the Sci-Fi Zone site as well for people to look at a link to the original version, so you can check that out as well.
So the things to pick up from that is, one, the prices of everything, like the price of the $15 for a play set, which you would sell now for probably $1 billion, a couple of kidneys worth. And the fact that all this stuff is brand new right behind them. The guys having a look, oh, yeah, whatever. And the little kid who said, nah, they're too old for it now. And, of course, we worked out later on that because of the timing, the father says that his son is 8 years old and the little kid says he has a younger brother, which we worked out is probably Aaron's age. And, of course, the kid who says, no, too old for it, he's my age, because I was 13 back in 1980. So how about that? So you and I, in one way or another, appeared in that video. And the guy saying, oh, there'll be merchandise around for the next 20 years or something. I mean, how is that a prophecy or what?
It's absolutely crazy when you watch the whole thing and you see the whole shop and they do different walks around and look at the different merchandise. I'm there freaking out because it's a Toys R Us and they've actually ripped all this amazing stuff out of the card to display it loose. And I'm the one that rips stuff off the card, but I see stuff from that era and where they've taken it out and displayed it like that. I'm like, oh my goodness, but I'm not thinking fourth dimensionally, where at the time that was just new product. I would love to go in a time machine and go back to that time, to when Empire came out. For us, it came out a couple of months later in August. They got it in May. That was the day of release, and that was the toys that were in the store. And you could see there was the last lot of Star Wars stuff was still on the shelf. You could see the die-cast Imperial Cruiser. When it was released for Empire, it was changed to the Star Destroyer, which is the correct name for it. But as a kid, can you imagine being, 8-year-old going and seeing Star Wars, and you look up and it looks like it goes up forever to the roof of just all this merchandise? You can understand why 8-year-old Aaron was blown away when he went into Maya in the city, because that's what it was like. That's what I remember at the time. You remember that kind of thing, Dags, as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially like that. We didn't have Toys R Us here, but clearly we had Maya, the 6th floor, and that was very, very like the equivalent of that. But I thought it was just funny that the guy said, oh, yeah, it'll still be around like 20, 30 years later. He had no idea how right he would be, and this is what Phil said. But, of course, the irony being that Toys R Us is no longer around. So you say, dude, you guess what? You're correct in one half, and you'd be out of a job in the other half. So, but, yeah, how trippy is that? It's a massive time capsule, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. You do love to know where those people have ended up today and whether they're still collecting, or if they ever got into collecting. So
it also does give you an idea of just how much Star Wars product was sold, because they had massive displays like that, and the movie came out and they were gone. And they had to restock for Christmas. The way it was released, they got the figures out for the release of the movie and a couple of products in May, and they pretty much all sold out. But they had done a release schedule where they'd have the figures and smaller stuff available for kids to buy with pocket money and a couple of play sets. But for Christmas, they released all the big stuff, because that's when grandparents and parents buy gifts for kids.
Love this comment from Joel, right? I don't have to imagine it. He lived at Toy World. That's Aaron's Collectibles when it eventually opens. So there you go. Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, so Star Wars was, of course, a success. It came out, and then the reviews came out. Empire Strikes Back tops the first Star Wars. Pretty much all of the reviews were positive. You know, there's probably 100 or so reviews you can read online, and 1 or 2 of them aren't positive. So,
sorry, I got to cut you off. Dave said, "Did I see Han wearing a red necktie?" No, he was wearing the medallion that he got at the end of Star Wars. That was a Star Wars figure. Okay, so that's what it was. Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
No, so these are some of the print ads that if you collected and scrapbooked, you could have got, basically confirming what everyone was hoping, that Empire Strikes Back was an awesome sequel. The kind of bad reviews were like, it's not the same as the first one, it's not worse, it's just different kind of thing. Some of the reviewers thought it had lost some of sort of the boy's own charm and was a bit more serious and a bit more romantic and things like that. But that's probably what moved it on and made it more popular.
Yeah, but if there was going to be a criticism, it was that like it didn't have a proper ending. You know, it's just very like, okay, the bad guys have won, the good guys have lost. Where to from here? Not realizing this part of a trilogy. But you know, I think that in retrospect, you go, yeah, that's fantastic. Now that you know what you know, but at the time, you know, I'm sure a lot of those
absolutely spot on, because some of the reviews I read were like, oh, this was the first one. Star Wars came out, it was a whole movie. This came out and the reviews were like a bit cynical. We're like, oh, these are going to go on forever. They're going to end on cliffhangers and we're going to be, you know, watching these movies forever. And again, wasn't too far from the truth.
Well, you said 2 things very, very quickly. That Gavin said it was the first sci-fi film that Bill Collins approved, and that's Bill Collins, movie reviewer. That you said, even in the song Yoda by Weird Al Yankovic, they talk about Luke, he's going to be making these movies till he's old and grey, and he is making these movies till he's old and grey. So it's prophesizing. How's that?
But what Weird Al couldn't see is Disney go and de-age him so he can be in The Mandalorian and not be old and grey.
Unbelievable. Anyway, we move on.
Okay, we're going to start looking at sort of the merchandise that was released for Empire Strikes Back. And the books and the print stuff always come out before the toys, because the lead in to produce toys is always a lot longer than it is to produce books and paper goods. And there were some fantastic books for Empire Strikes Back. I remember the Empire Strikes Back storybook was one of my favorite books in the school library, where we would go and you'd have a race. I don't know if everyone remembers this. When kids go to the school library and they say you can go and pick a free book, half the class runs up and tries to get the same book, and it's like pulling it off the shelf because I've got the Empire Strikes Back book. And then, like, if you didn't get it, you weren't allowed to read someone else's book. So it was always a race to get that book. There's the official collector's magazine there, and that's one of those things I think that's been lost a bit with movies these days. I guess people don't collect print media as much as they used to, and there isn't the demand. But I really used to like getting the making of or the official movie album that you could sometimes buy at the cinema and you could always buy in specialty shops, because a lot of the time when they were released, they had alternate scenes or they had stuff that wasn't in the movie, and they'd have some making of stuff. Before the internet, you couldn't really see any of that unless you got the magazines, and it would have artwork and different things. And sometimes when you were a kid and you saw these movies, you totally interpreted stuff a different way, and then you'd get the book and you'd go, oh, that's what that meant. I was saying to Dags when Star Wars came out and Obi-Wan said, or Han says, good against the living, that's the remote, that's one thing, but good against the living, that's something else. I thought that was some kind of philosophical, you know what I mean, saying.
Philosophical.
Yeah, that's the one. But he was actually talking about the remote. I didn't know at the time as a kid that was the droid, and it was just he was saying, oh, you fight droids, that's one thing. You fight the living, that's something else. And I didn't realize that until the Decipher cards came out, and there was the picture of the remote on it, calling it the remote. So that's what I loved about the print media back then. You got a background to the movie that you might not have picked up if you just saw the movie.
So the official collector's edition was a really big deal because it was the official book, right? You knew everything in it was legitimate, and you got to see. I mean, like, these are the things you read to death, right? Because there was nothing else to turn to. Like just what Mark said about having the 12-inch story on record. They just got used again and again and again because other than the films at the cinemas, you had nothing else to turn to. And I know that. These were really treasured items at the time, and you certainly appreciated them far more than I guess people would today. You know, as you said, with the internet being in place. But very, very cool.
there's some good books there, and I do remember reading Empire, the novel, after the movie came out. But in Australia, it would have come out before the movie. Imagine getting to the chapter with Bespin and being spoiled because you know that in the book that it reveals who Vader is before you've actually seen the movie.
Well, it's a true story. I actually saw the book at a 7-Eleven in Brunswick, and I actually had it because I was in high school, and I actually had another friend of mine steal it for me. I said to him, dude, I've got to have this book. I've got no money. And he actually did. He swiped it for me, stole it for me. It was like a stolen property. I'm a thief. And I actually read the book before the movie, and I just plowed through it that fast because, you know, oh my God. It just didn't even register as to what was going on. But, yeah, that was my introduction to The Empire Strikes Back. But, yeah, a lot of the books, some of them a bit more fancier than others. If you had the storybook way over here, you could either do what some people did and just look at the pictures and love them, or you could get the pair of scissors and cut them all out of the book and put them in, stick them somewhere else, and you have one picture on one side and one picture on the other page, and go, oh my God, which one do I keep?
Well, now we know that you're a criminal. That's probably what you did to the one from your school libraries.
See, the thing is, Jared, I didn't do the robbing. I got someone to do it for me because I thought, yeah, and he got away with it too. So I couldn't have done it myself. I was just too much of a nice guy back then. So and there you go. And you got the Artov book, which is a real high-end thing, even though the spines all fell apart and they were beautiful. But, yeah, there's a lot of really, really good stuff that came out at the time.
My pick of the books there was actually the making of, the red one down in the...
Oh, yeah. That was good.
Which was amazing for the time because there wasn't a lot of making of. I think there was the Jaws log was before that, and that was about the first making of book that ever was released. So... If you collected books, The Empire was a good time for reading and adding to your library.
Yeah, and there was a lot of good stuff in that making of book because I read it as well. So, yeah, very cool.
And, of course, when any movie comes out, there's a poster campaign. And Empire Strikes Back, in my opinion, is one of the best poster campaigns ever. I think the posters captured exactly the spirit of the movie. And one of the things I remember when the posters came out for Empire, because I do remember seeing the posters, I was like, wait a second, the Death Star was blown up, the Empire were gone. How can this be The Empire Strikes Back? And they've got ahead of the rebels again. I was like absolutely stunned. And then when you see the movie, it expands the universe so much and you realize the depth of the Empire and the power they have. And the great thing about Empire Strikes Back, I was always more into the baddies than the goodies. Darth Vader dominated all of the posters, where it was always his head in the background and he was obviously in control of everything and watching over the entire empire. So this was probably something that was part of the plan when they designed the posters, because all of them have that in theme, with Darth Vader looming over everyone and the rebels in trouble, smaller underneath. It's even if you don't pick it up, it's subliminally there when you see these posters. And different countries got different posters, and I think they were all fantastic. There was really great artwork all around the world for Empire Strikes Back. And if you collect posters, they are some of the hottest Star Wars items you can get, are the Empire Strikes Back posters. They're always favourites with collectors. Have you got any of the posters, Dags?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. I got the official one sheet of the one up here, which I absolutely adored, and I never sold that. I made a point of keeping that. And this is the 10th anniversary one here, and I got that, and it's all laminated. So the Gone with the Wind one down here, this is a slightly different variation because the logo is different. But one of the things I could never work out why they did this. If you ever see the picture of Luke up there, his breath is appearing because of the snow, right? But it looks like he's just taken a cigarette and just blown out. It's like, why would you put that in? You didn't need to do that. I just couldn't figure that one out. And, of course, later versions of this poster included Boba Fett and Lando down the bottom here, so who were missing from the original version. So there you go. Yeah. Very, very cool. Yeah. And, of course, way on this side, the green one, which was primarily the Australian release, it was spectacular. And it took ages to work out. That's actually the Millennium Falcon there, because you can't really tell what that is because it's a sight-on shot. But
and you can see from that, there's the Australian. That's actually the Japanese poster. It was designed by Noriyoshi Arai, I think his name is. But that was the one we got locally. But you can see underneath the different printing in different countries. The color was so totally different. And we're looking at a couple of slides, the actual original Japanese version, which I think is stunning. If we go on to the next slide, though, we get some of the international releases. Again, when I say all the posters are amazing, some are more amazing than others. I always think the Japanese release posters are great. For some reason, I think the Japanese text on posters looks really amazing. The the one you were talking about there before the Gone with the Wind one, I don't know, with the Japanese, it looks kind of Blade Runner because, you know, they had all the Japanese signs in Blade Runner. So I've always thought that was a fantastic version of it. And then you've got different versions like the Russian one there with all the lightsabers coming out of, you presume it must be Vader's head, and you wonder what they were even thinking.
A few comments here, which is kind of cool. So Gavin has said Yoda hardly made an appearance. That would have been intentional, not so you don't give it away that he's a major character, because in the movie you don't know he's Yoda until he says he's Yoda. So that was intentional. Kelvin made a point about the Empire Strikes Back radio play. No, James Earl Jones didn't do the voice of Darth Vader. Brock Peters did the voice of Darth Vader. So you got the wrong. Sorry, Kelvin, I got to correct you on that one. But the cool thing about the radio play is they had an intro episode that leads into what we see on Hoth, and it's actually the rebels being resupplied by a convoy that gets attacked by the Imperials, and they all get destroyed. And it's right before the movie starts, and it's absolutely fantastic sequence. Listen to it in headphones. It's awesome because it's all the TIE fighter sound effects and whatever else. And you're right, Michael. Vader wasn't in charge. He was in charge effectively of the bad guys that we saw in the movie, but overall, you're right, he was definitely the Emperor's puppet. So there's no denying that. So yes, very, very cool. And you're right, Joe, the Hungarian one is a bit nuts, but you know, obviously it worked for their respective countries. So I can't imagine anybody saying I'm not going to see this movie because the poster's crap. But there you go. Very cool.
And here's the Japanese the campaign for when it was released in Japan. And again, they have some fantastic poster art, and they're quite hard to find and go for quite a lot on the secondary market if you can even find them. And for some reason, I do just think the Japanese text works really well on movie posters. And if you ever see any of them around, it's worth picking them up because they are quite rare. If we go to the next one, though, my favorite poster is the Japanese poster we were talking about before. And this is how it was printed originally. And it was also, I think, re-released maybe 10 years ago for the 30th anniversary of Empire. And they went back to the original plates. And the colors on it are absolutely stunning, much better than it was released at the time. And I've just pulled up some of the details so you can see how vibrant they actually are when they do go back to the original transparencies and do a good job on reissuing a poster. This is one of my favorite posters of all time, just because it captures the movie so well. The colors are vibrant, so it just pops. And then the Japanese text just lifts it a little bit above the local release, I think. I love how the bounty hunters are highlighted in crimson, just sort of peeking through the background, because they were only just sort of in the movie a little bit. And then the 80s walking down the bottom there with the probe droid. And then you've got all the major bits, the Han and Leia about to have a pash, which before the movie, people have been wondering who she wound up with. But now we just think, oh, of course. But back then we didn't know the twists and turns that were going to happen. So this is one of my favorite posters of all time.
So in this, what's worth noting in this one is that Luke is holding his gun in his right hand, whereas in the Star Wars posters, he was always holding his gun in his left hand. And I think if I recall, Mark Hamill was left-handed, so that's an interesting sort of observation. Mick has said about Japanese posters, a lot of the Japanese stuff is fantastic. They just did some wonderful things regarding merchandising. You say can't knock it. Joshua said the radio play is excellent. It's long, goes for 13 hours effectively. It was a 13.5-hour episodes. Can't remember, like 6 hours maybe. But one of the cool scenes is actually in after Han rescues Luke on the snow thing, you know, when he's been beaten up by the Tauntaun and they're inside the tent. There's actually a conversation between the two of them in the tent, and it's actually quite cool because in the movie you don't see that. You just see it the next day. So very, very groovy. There you go.
So we move on to posters, and the other thing that came out pretty early for the Empire Strikes Back was the comic books, again, because the comics have a shorter lead-in time to when they can be released. And the Empire Strikes Back comic was good, and it was one of those things where they went on earlier cuts of the movie. So you had deleted scenes, and I've put one down the bottom there, which finally came out on the Blu-ray a couple of years ago, but for years and years, nobody saw it. And that was when Luke came out of the back to tank the FX7 droid, taking the medical mask off of him, which when you see the actual scene, that is exactly how it is. So I would have loved to have been a comic book artist for Marvel, where you're getting access to earlier versions of the movie or earlier pictures of the movie that haven't been seen. On the other side of that, though, because Yoda was a secret character and was played down and there weren't many pictures of him, as we were mentioning before, the Yoda in the comics is based on an earlier design of Yoda. So he doesn't look very much like the Yoda we got in the movie at all, which must have really surprised kids when they got the comic and read it. And then they went to the cinema and Yoda didn't look like the sort of the more wizard, I guess, that the comics portrayed him as. Do you remember getting the comics? And the other great scene, Dags, is they had the Wampa attack on Echo Base, which I was really disappointed wasn't in the movie.
Yeah, so the thing about the comics is they were based on the original screenplay, so which is what the novel was based on. So the novels and the comics tend to go hand in hand and follow each other quite closely. And then, of course, in the film, they cut out the excess bits. So you do get to see what would be effectively the director's cut, if you will. Now, here's a question for you. So as legend has it, now you can take this one way or another. Do you know why they put the sequence in at the start of Empire where Luke gets bashed up by the Wampa?
Well, it's been denied by Lucasfilm and Mark Hamill, but he was in a car accident and got his face banged up and it was swollen, and they put something in just to explain this because he had a reconstruction. I think the cartilage in his nose was replaced or something like that, just in case he looked different. And so they put that scene in. But apparently the earlier drafts of Empire Strikes Back, that scene is in there before the date of the car accident.
So the story I heard is in his BMW, he had the crash after filming Star Wars, but before the movie was released. And it was actually Gary Kurtz who actually had to identify him at the hospital because at that point nobody knew who Mark Hamill was, and he did have to go through a bit of facial reconstruction. And of course he looked different. And if you look at how he looks in Star Wars and you see him in Empire, and you go, it's only 3 years the difference. But there is a little bit of he's aged a bit there. So that was the reason why, as I understood it, why they put that sequence in at the start where he gets beaten up by the Wampa. And that's the reason why when you see him in Star Wars, he looks fantastic. And then, like, well, okay, where was the prang? Where was the car crash? And that's apparently where it took place. So it's become a bit of an urban myth now. Some people say this, some people say that, but it doesn't make sense that he would get bashed up in the very start of the movie before you've really even seen the guy. But anyway, whether it's right or wrong, it is legend. So yay team. And a few people have said that we're on the right track. So yeah, now actually he was driving a BMW, not a Corvette. So there you go. So that's the story we've all heard. So whether people deny it or not is another thing. But anyway, at least we know. There you go.
And then Empire Strikes Back appeared in the Star Wars comics. Marvel had been running Star Wars comics since the original movie came out, and they were quite successful for a sci-fi comic book. A lot of comics were more action heroes, and there weren't really many long-running sci-fi comics, but Star Wars was popular enough to sustain a run. And during the run, they actually did Empire Strikes Back over, I think it was 4 or 6 issues. And it was pretty much the adaptation that then they put as a collected book that we saw earlier, and they sold them all together. And they were huge selling comics for Marvel. When Empire Strikes Back came out, though, it posed a big problem because Empire Strikes Back, of course, doesn't have a resolution. It ends on a cliffhanger. And Marvel weren't allowed to move forward with any of the characters or do anything that would interfere with what was going to happen in Return of the Jedi. So if we go to the next slide, here are some of the things they weren't allowed to do. So Han, Boba Fett, Jabba were all off limits, so they couldn't use anything of those characters. Luke could not further his Jedi training. Yoda and Obi-Wan could not appear at all. Luke and Leia's relationship could not progress in any way. Now, if you're left without Han, you've got Lando, I guess, and you've got all these stories that fans would imagine and be, chomping at the bit to hear after Empire Strikes Back. And then the writers at Marvel are basically told, you can't do anything in the Star Wars universe that's going to contradict the movies, and so you can't use these characters and you can't use these plots. You'd think it would hamper what Marvel could actually do, but they actually survived all the way through to the adaptation of Return of the Jedi, and they had to be really creative. So you'd get flashback episodes and episodes with Lando and episodes with giant green rabbits and all these other things, but the upshot of this was they had to be more creative. So instead of hampering them, some of the more imaginative stories and story arcs happen after Empire Strikes Back when they've actually been limited to what they can say.
It's about Green Rabbits. I just thought of Jackson, whatever his name was, just there and then. And just finally on the Mark Hamill crash. So Joel said he heard it from Margot Kidder, and Christy said it was actually mentioned in the Making of the Empire Strikes Back book, the red one that you saw earlier on, which is very, very, very cool. There you go. Good stuff.
And these were some of the promotions. We looked at the Pepsi, the Coca-Cola glasses earlier. These were some of the glasses that were available in the States and some of the posters. And these were available here as well in different versions. This is the Darth Vader poster there is quite controversial. Do you know why that one was not a favorite poster of George Lucas?
What, because of the two sabers?
Because at the time, no one was meant to wield a lightsaber with one hand.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
When that came out, it wasn't. It got through and it was approved and everything, but it wasn't a favourite and probably the hardest one to get because I don't think it was reprinted much. There's two posters there from Boris, which are the famous fantasy artist, which are quite striking posters as well. And they were given away as a Pepsi promotion, and I think they were in Burger King, not McDonald's in America. And there's the ad for the glasses as well, and you could get quite a nice set of glasses. The Empire glasses are really nice. You can imagine when you got them at the time you would use them because it's a nice set of glasses.
It's interesting to note there are 4 glasses in the set, and when we had the McDonald's cups earlier on there was only 3, and we said maybe there's 4. So maybe 4 is a running theme with these things, because typically when you're creating cups, glasses and whatever else, it's based on the theory you're going to have a dining room table with 4 sides, and you put a glass on each of the sides. So logically, if there are 4 glasses, then there would have been 4 cups, as we saw in the eBay.
Who would get to the bottom of this? It's the wrong franchise, but the Kardashians would work out if there were 3 or 4 glasses.
Yes, very, very good. And for that reason, I'm going to kick. He's just brought up the Kardashians, and that means he's got to get kicked off the show. So there you go. Very, very good. Yeah, you're right. Don't put them through the dishwasher. Don't ever do that. That's the key thing. So yes, indeed. Yeah. Very, very cool.
And one of the popular items with Star Wars was the Woman's Day Make Your Own Star Wars playset. And when Empire Strikes Back came out, they doubled down and showed you how to make 2 playsets. You could make the Dagobah playset or the Rebel Base playset. Of course, they couldn't really link them too much with Star Wars. They were generic space playsets that they used Star Wars figures on. But I do love the Yoda's Home playset, where you've got a really good version of the Dagobah swamp, and you remember you could buy the old green slime. Well, yeah. they tell you to get the green slime and dump it in the middle of the swamp, so you can reenact the scene where Yoda goes, R2D2 goes for a bit of a swim, and all of that. And what I do like in the Echo Base, you can turn an old rubber glove from doing the dishes, and you stretch it out and you use it as a trampoline, so you can throw your figures onto it, and they're space bouncers, like for personally rocketing your Star Wars figures into space, which I'm sure would have come in handy on Echo Base.
Absolutely love it. I just like number 4, the scummy waters of Dagobah. Mate, where would Yoda be at this point? He's like, yeah, my home this is, slimy mud hole, scummy waters. Oh, golly. Good, sounds like a good name for a singer, doesn't it, really? It's scummy waters. Anyway,
don't wash your glasses in the scummy waters of Dagobah. Now,
here we go. Christy made it and her brother destroyed it. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So her brother walked in and said, guess what, Christy? I'm the Death Star, and just bashed the crap out of it.
Yeah. So when we looked at Star Wars, we did cover all the different card sets. But do you know what? I went back and looked, and I found other stuff for Empire that people might not have ever heard. Now, Empire, as Dags was saying, released 3 different sets of cards for Empire, I'm pretty sure. And we looked at them on the Star Wars version of this, but here are some of the stuff for Empire that is quite hard to find. There were Empire Strikes Back collecting boxes, and these were produced by Topps in America, and you could send off for them. And they were basically, I guess, the size of a cigarette pack or something like that. And you could fold this box up, and you could keep your cards in the box, and then there's, on the spine, place to write, what cards you've got, and there's a checklist, so you could carry around your checklist when you're doing your trading to see which ones you needed. And that's one of those items, I've been collecting all my life, and I didn't know they existed. And I looked online, and you can get them. That little box will cost you about $50 US to get a mint one.
So the irony being that the collector box, which is designed to protect the cards, is now more collectible than the cards itself.
Absolutely. And like I've got, complete sets of Empire and stuff like that. And I find out now I've got to track one of these down to really truly have a complete set of Empire cards. And I'm wondering if anyone locally has got these, because until I was researching this show, this is one of those rare vintage items that I didn't know was about. And the crazy thing about that, they advertise them on the wrappers of the packets, and I never even noticed it.
So you now got to create a collector's box so you can put the collector's box in it, and then it's like Russian dolls. Just one goes inside the other, and away we go. So love it. And yeah, you're right, Jared. They come in a set of 4. Indeed, they do. So yes, very, very cool.
And we looked at the cards last time, but I have to pull up this card because the first piece of merchandise I think I remember buying was packets of the Empire Strikes Back cards here. And so everything in them was totally new and you'd never seen before. And the first box I opened had the Snow Walkers in, and they blew my mind, because when you look at sci-fi movies and the movies that were around at the same time as Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars, it was all set in space. And this was like on an ice planet with these huge mechanical tanks walking across the ice. And I remember just seeing that and being sold instantly and going, this is going to be the best movie ever. And so the Empire Strikes Back cards, I probably got before, maybe even 6 months before I saw the movie, it feels like. But every single one of them was a window into the new movie that was absolutely amazing.
Do you love the fact, you probably can't see it out there, it says the Snow Walkers and it's got a TM. It's like, how can you trademark Snow Walkers? People have been walking in the snow for thousands of years. So, yeah, I mean, you can trademark AT-AT and, all-terrain armored transport and all that, but you can't really trademark Snow Walkers. I think they've sort of chucked that in as a bit of a, don't touch our property, but in reality, you can't really register that. So, but yes.
Carrie Fisher often said she had TM, property of Lucasfilm, stamped on her ass. So they really did trademark everything.
Yeah, exactly right. So like Michael trademarked the moonwalk. He could probably trademark the name of it, but you can't trademark the actual physical movement. It's just a human movement. So if someone else does it, you're going to sue them just because they're walking backwards. But yes, and there you go. And just as a slight thing, hey, that backdrop back behind there, hey, I've kind of seen one of those in real life, back in the day. So there you go. Move on.
And again, something we didn't look at last time, but are very, very cool, was some of the kits that came out, the model kits for Star Wars. And these were the ones that were released for Empire Strikes Back. And they were, again, absolutely fantastic, because if you did model kits, and I used to do a few tanks and stuff when I was growing up, you never really saw complete dioramas. And what they did with Star Wars, they released Hoth as 2 different dioramas, and they released Yoda's house as another diorama, and the artwork on them was amazing. And the great thing about the Star Wars kits was they were snapped together. And I remember when you'd built a tank, you would like break the stuff off the tree, glue it together, and then wait till the next day to do the next bit. But you could get the Star Wars ones and the snap together ones, you could do the whole thing in one afternoon, which was quite good. The other thing though that happened with a lot of models, when they included paint, there was no way with the paint that they included could you make it look like the professionally built model that was on the front of the box. On these ones, they had artwork, but you'd often see in the different adverts like these amazing looking model kits. And then you'd get the paint and there'd be a black and a white tub and the 3 primary colors, and not enough to even cover half the kit. And they sort of go, and your kit can look like this. But you know what? These days I'd keep it mint in the box anyway and not try to put it together. It is an interesting thing if you collect model kits. Mint in box is worth a lot, but professionally made and looking amazing can often go for more than mint in box.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I had the AT-AT model because I love that. And the picture of the Star Destroyer at the top, I mean, how can you not love that? I mean, the Star Destroyer is my favorite ship in any sci-fi franchise spanning anything. It's like, and that just image is just gorgeous. But I don't recall ever seeing the Slave One anywhere in my travels. So, but
the Slave One was probably the hardest one to get, and you don't see it around as much as you do the other ones. I remember, and I'm going to mention another franchise here, Dags. I remember getting the Star Destroyer at the same time as the Battlestar Galactica, the Cylon base star. And that was another fantastic model ship as well.
Even though sideways it just looked like a giant yo-yo, but anyway, not to worry about that. Jared said you could still get those model kits, so yeah, it doesn't surprise me. So, but yeah, just absolutely fantastic. Yes, very, very cool.
And we've looked at video games before, so we'll just have a quick look at this. But Empire Strikes Back was one of the first video game tie-ins. It wasn't the first, but Atari had just started pumping out Atari cartridges, and the campaign for this was huge, and it was one of the biggest games on the system, and it was a good game. And I found a couple more things. There's the T-shirt there, which I hadn't seen around before and would be pretty rare. I guess there's modern reissues of stuff like this now, so you can get anything on Etsy. Just ask Spankin. So.
I love this one. Good old Jess's bag. Oh, that's such a sick T-shirt, as opposed to someone being sick all over it. So I absolutely love it. The Vials picked up an interesting point. They did produce a Snowspeeder model kit, and the bizarre thing about it is the paint scheme on it. They actually said you paint the wings on the outside black with a bit of yellow. But in the movie, they didn't have that at all. They just had a red stripe that ran up the nose and under the body. So I don't know why they got you to paint a different color scheme. It was kind of cockeyed. I had a friend of mine who was about as close to professional model as you could get, and he copied the film version. And he actually put his own pilots in there, cut their heads off and put them on blue tack so he could actually move their heads around. And it came out like studio color. It was absolutely fantastic, which is what you said earlier about having professionally built model kits, just spectacular. And there's a good example of that. So.
Well, someone was talking about the kits are still available today, which they are. But the great thing about some of them, when the X-Wing came out, it had one lot of transfers. But the more they released, they do all the different squadrons, and you could customize which one you made, which was great for the model producers, because then you could go, I'm going to buy 5 of them and, have a different one for every one I put together.
Very good. Yeah, right, Kelvin. I think everybody played at least that version of The Empire Strikes Back. It was because I remember being promoted and it was such a big deal. But then we move into the really funky stuff. What do we got here? Prices. Where are the dollar signs?
Yes, like finding this stuff now, mint in box, is incredibly hard. So before we move into the more general Star Wars toys, one of the things we didn't look at so much with Star Wars was the die-cast ships they released, and they were very, very popular. And for Empire Strikes Back, they, of course, released more of them. One of the rarest items from Empire Strikes Back, and one of the few items of toys I have never, ever had, is that TIE bomber. Now, that wasn't released in Australia, and it wasn't released in America everywhere. It was only released in test markets, which is a real pain in the ass for collectors, because it's on the back of all the boxes, and you go to your local Toys R Us or Toy World or whatever, and you ask for it, and they go, nah, we'll see if we can get it for you. Nah. You had to live in one of a few states, and it might have been released in Canada as well. So consequently, now that is one of the most expensive Star Wars toys that exist. I've seen them go boxed on the cheap side about 900, up to the expensive side about 5,000 US for that toy. So quite an expensive collectible there.
Yeah, I've seen this in Steve Sansweet's house back in 1993 when I was there, not like 4 years ago. And it was just like a mind spin. It was like, or seeing all this stuff was a mind spin, because like, oh my God, I haven't seen this stuff in boxes in years. But to see something is like, oh shit, this is the thing that we never ever got to see in our lives, a TIE bomber die cast still mint in boxes, like far out. So trippy moment.
The interesting thing about that there, you can see on the top left, you've got the back of the card, and it shows the entire range of die casts. So you've got the Star Wars ones that were already released, and you've got the new Empire ones. Now, I knew that the boxed ones underneath, so you've got the Millennium Falcon, and you've got the Y-Wing, and the Star Destroyer came out again. They were reissues as Empire. But I don't think I've ever seen any of the carded smaller vehicles on an Empire card, even though that they are advertised there. And when I was doing the research for this, I did find someone had a X-Wing in their collection, which does suggest that they all came out. And they must be one of the hardest collectibles to find on the secondary market, the die-cast figures, the die-cast vehicles on the Empire cards from Star Wars, because I couldn't even find visual examples online of any of them but the X-Wing. So the X-Wing proves they are out there somewhere. But I've never seen them around, and I don't really know anyone with them in their collection. Now, I remember... Sorry, did you want to say something, Dags?
No, it's all right. Wait till you finished.
I remember as well, though, the die-cast Slave 1 even after Return of the Jedi was out, that was a peg warmer. And one of the last items I ever saw for Empire Strikes Back in any shop was at a place called Baby Co. in Ringwood. And they had still hundreds of the die-cast Slave One for 99 cents. And they had 3 Star Wars figures. They had Squidhead, Neon Numb, and one other one. It was one of the one of Jabba's palace. It might have been Klaatu, and they were there for years and years and years after the movies came out. So they were popular at the time, but they did also, once the movies sort of were out of the cinema and moved on to different things, they did hang around. So Slave One of the last Empire items I ever saw in the shops in Australia.
Yeah, regarding the X-Wing being on Star Wars card, maybe whoever was buying them here in the stores, they were just getting excess stock laid over from the late 70s and just brought them back. I don't know what the backs were like. Maybe they were Empire backs. I'm not sure, but that may explain it. So only selected markets got the Empire carded X-Wing, so it's hard to say.
As a kid, I had them, and I was disappointed they didn't make more. I would have loved to have seen like a TIE Interceptor and some of the other stuff.
Well, one of the things that we did start to see was elements that were being merchandised with Empire name, with the Empire Strikes Back name, but were in the previous movie. And you go, hang on, this character wasn't like all the action figures, which I'm sure we're going to touch on somewhere in our travels, that were clearly from the first movie being marketed for the second movie. And you go, you're not twigging that you've actually been like rorted. But there you go. Jared made a point about saying there's a TIE bomber out of box on eBay for $1,600, an empty box is $1,700. Yeah, well, if the box is in mint condition, just the box, I know it's a bit of a hard one to sort of understand, but by the same token, not at all. You can understand it. So there you go. Yeah. And there was also a blue TIE bomber. I'm not sure. Maybe it was just how it was manufactured. Yeah, not entirely sure. Very, very cool. All right.
And it was about this time, as we saw, Empire actually hit the toy shelves as well. And so this is kind of what I remember going into shops when Empire was first out and in full swing, and seeing aisles full of Empire Strikes Back stuff, and seeing these different displays. And there's a few displays there I'd never seen before. The one in the top right-hand corner that looks like a snow globe is from Hamlin's in the UK, which is a big toy department store over there. And that was sold at auction recently and went for thousands of dollars. But that's like a big dome with all the Millennium Falcon and the action figures glued into the playset, and they'd all gone yellow as well, which is crazy. But I guess it's sort of a very amazing promotional piece. On the other side, the Imperial Walker on Hoth was one of the headers that the toy shops used to advertise the Empire Strikes Back section. And I remember going in, you'd see different ones of those. I remember Yoda hanging from the roof, and different posters and different shelf talkers, which are down the bottom there. The Empire Strikes Back were sort of on the shelves to tell you where the Star Wars toys were at the time. So Empire Strikes Back hit the toy departments, and it hit really hard.
You can clearly tell, and this is based on the video of the Toys R Us manager earlier on, is saying, people with not a lot of money will go for the action figures because they're cheap, but the sets are more expensive. But based on the photo down here in the bottom left, they know that if they sell one set, that's the equivalent of maybe a dozen, 2 dozen figures. So the more sets they sell, the better. And you can just imagine a kid with no money whatsoever looking at that going, oh, my God, look at all this awesome stuff. Can't afford any of it because it's for people with the money. And that's obviously what they were sort of aiming for when they, when you fill up a shelf like that, an aisle like that, I mean, that's just going to break our hearts left, right, and centre.
We'll look at it. We'll look at it more next week when we look more at the general toys. But the figures were the gateway drug for kids to get into it because they were pocket money. And then Kenner deliberately did stuff at every single price point. So they would capture, the $3 figure, the $10 mini rig, the $15 to $20 play set, and the $50 vehicle. So you could still be a Star Wars fan on pocket money, but you could also, build on that and collect a collection and go for everything if you had a couple of aunts and uncles that were prepared to buy you some good birthday or Christmas presents.
Yeah, exactly right. Yes, that's actually a good point. Yeah. Christmas and birthdays. All I want is Star Wars, and they give you an action figure. God damn it, I wanted a Millennium Falcon. These cheapskates.
You do realise Kenner were genius by keeping the entire range on the back of the cards, because you got a couple of figures, and then you marked off the ones you had, and you gave it to your relatives, and then they could go and buy the ones you needed. That's what we used to do.
Remember, the three of the greatest words of the entire collecting universe is collect them all. Words of wisdom or an order. So there you go.
Now, just to give you an example that was of stuff that was out at the time, this was what was competing with Empire Strikes Back. And there are some nice things. There's the Flash Gordon figures in the middle on the left there, and then there's the Buck Rogers from the TV series, and they did a range of figures, and they did vehicles as well, and they did look quite good. In the middle there, you've got merchandise from the first Star Trek movie. I don't think I've ever seen the Star Trek bridge. I wonder if Joel's got one. The play set for the Star Trek figures. I don't know if that ever came out because I can't remember ever seeing one around. And they did a range of figures, which were, of course, the bridge crew and some aliens. And then on the side, there's sort of the more generic toys that were available at the time. So you've got your Guns of Navarone play set and your space base play set and the Western play sets and stuff like that. But Empire Strikes Back pretty much steamrolled all of these and killed all of the lines instantly because, and I am in this boat too, if I had someone, at Christmas give me like a Star Trek because, you've got a doddering old relative who thinks Star Trek and Star Wars are the same thing, I'd have opened it and I'd have gone, what is this crap? This is going back, and that's not because I disliked Star Trek at the time. It was just Star Wars was it at the time growing up.
So for people out there, if you're wondering, the first thing that used to come out of Aaron's mouth as a little kid when he was given a gift from someone was, hope he kept the receipt. Return everything.
Do you know what, Dags? You joke about that, but my parents, because I was so pedantic, my parents would say to relatives, just keep the receipt just in case, because Aaron can be funny about stuff.
I can relate to the same story. My mother bought me the soundtrack to Star Wars, and bless her heart, and her cotton socks and all that. And as soon as it came out, it was blue. I thought it was supposed to be black, and I realised it was the London Philharmonic Orchestra, not the London Symphony Orchestra. And I go, I thought you were going to
say, you turned around and said, "Who the F is Jeff Love?"
And it was like, it was like, and because you put the, it's like, not even close. It's like, oh, well, yeah, good try, but yeah, no. Sometimes, yes, do or do not. There is no try. Exactly right.
So if the kids, the other stuff was methadone, this is the crack that everybody wanted. So these were the adverts for the Star Wars stuff. And again, this is what I saw before I saw the figures, because you would get the junk mail and they would have all this, like, basically candy. It was all over it, what was coming out at the shops and what was going to be available soon. And a lot of the time, unfortunately, I would be getting or seeing magazines in Minotaur or somewhere else which had the international ads, and they'd have all these play sets that were exclusive and didn't come out here. And then I'd go to the shops and try and find them, and they weren't here. And they never were released here, some of the stuff. In fact, some of the catalogs that came with the toys here just had not available stamped through half of the items that were in the catalogs. So a lot of the Star Wars stuff that I never got, I saw in these sort of adverts for buying the stuff. But until the age of the internet, it was very, very hard to get in Australia. You'd have to go to collector fairs, and it would be expensive because people would have to import some of this stuff for it to be here.
So Jared has asked if I still have that record. Now, remember, I got this in 1978, right? And being the El Cheapo knockoff Philharmonic Orchestra, that got frisbeed out the window of the bedroom very, very quickly. So, and I like it from Mark saying the fake smiles. Oh, that's fantastic. That's lovely. That's just what I've always wanted. And you're walking. I can imagine you doing that, Aaron. That'd be quite funny. And the music thing is, it's junkie mail then, but today it's just like a trip back in time. And that's the funny thing. You look back and go, oh, my God, and especially when you look at the prices, you go, oh, my goodness, if only I could buy it today at the price it was being sold for back then. So it was an $80 for an AT-AT, is it? I can't even read that. So if you can be able to, up the top left-hand corner. So buy today, if you had a Minton box AT-AT of that size, you could put a couple of zeros on top of that, I think. So absolutely insane. Yeah, very cool. And this is the last picture.
There we go. Am I back? I just froze out, I think, or something.
That's all right. I was talking, so I'm not surprised you froze out when I was talking. I don't say much anyway, so there you go. Anyway, last one. Keep going.
Well, my screen isn't loading. I think the last picture is another picture of merchandise, is it?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I can't remember exactly what's on it. I'm just seeing a blank screen at the moment.
It's all sort of ships and vehicles and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think I was going to mention, and the first thing that came out, Empire, was of course reissues of all the toys we already had, and there's some fantastic advertising. I think I put one up of like dewbacks on Hoth, and so I saw these pictures when they came out, and you'd go to the movie and you go, oh wow, like the stormtroopers are going to be riding dewbacks, and of course it was just repacking older product, and it wasn't anything to do with what was in the movie. So on The Empire Strikes Back, some of the first things that came out were the Jawa Sandcrawler, the dewbacks, and some of those things. So they kind of tricked kids into rebuying stuff that they'd missed the first time round and clearing out some of the stuff that was in the warehouses.
Very cool. And Kelvin, look, it's Australia getting sort of stiff. That happened because of our population size. You mean, you look at some of the population size of America and all that, they're clearly going to get everything first because they've got a bigger market. You've got to expect that. This transporter down the bottom here, right in the middle, keen-eyed viewers will recognize that because it now appears and is canonized in The Mandalorian. So that's actually kind of groovy. And and as Aaron said, once they started reissuing figures from a previous movie into the new Empire Strikes Back cards, you go, mate, it's like, what's the deal with that? You know, and clearly they've done it because they had all these leftovers, and they go, this is a fantastic way of getting people to buy them again. And yes, exactly right. So Christy, the Darth Vader carry case, that was very, very cool, wasn't it? Instead of just being like the suitcase shaped, is now shaped like Vader's head. So very, very groovy. And believe it or not, that actually brings us to the end of part 1. How good's that?
So thanks everyone for coming and hanging out for all of that. Like, Empire is such a big movie that we couldn't fit it all into one episode. And of course, everyone's going to be interested next week when we really get into the Kenner toys and the Kenner promotions and some of the stuff that was released for that. I hope everybody has enjoyed what we've shared with you today.
Very good stuff. So it's funny, hang on, just going to click on this. So it's funny how this just brings back a lot of memories for a lot of people. And the classic thing that we've said before is that people are going to look at these things and go, oh, I used to have that, and I used to have that, and I used to have that, and now they don't for whatever reason, or some people may still do. And it's just interesting to see that these things have a lot more of a longevity than we once thought they would have. So, but I love the fact that even the manager guy said, 25, 30 years from now, there'll still be Star Wars on the shelves. And we're now looking at products that came out on the day when the movie was released, when he was speaking. So, and we're talking about it now in like 41 years later. How freaking trippy is that? So there you go. Anyhow, we've got 5 minutes to go until 10 o'clock. So we're going to wrap this one up. Any final words before we bugger off, Mr. Aaron?
No, just like I said, thanks for everyone for being along for this plus size episode. Hope you've all enjoyed it and enjoyed some of the pictures, especially the interview that Dags cut together. That was really impressive. Thanks for doing that, mate.
Good stuff. And we hit a world record tonight. We had 31 viewers at one point, which was absolutely fantastic. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you tune in for next week for more Empire Strikes Back stuff before the damn internet came into play. So in the interim, make sure you keep all your AT-AT models mint inbox.
Or keep on card or rip off card. There is no try.
You really had to think hard about that, didn't you? All right, see you guys. Take care.
See you guys. Bye. I should have said rip or